Well, blessed Tuesday to you as we come with your daily encouragement, and we are in 1 Peter 3, beginning with verse 9. Do not repay, Peter says, evil for evil or abuse for abuse, but on the contrary, repay with a blessing. It is not for this that you were called, that you might inherit a blessing. It is for this, I'm sorry. It is for this that you were called, that you might inherit a blessing. In other words, we're to inherit a blessing, not a curse. We're to inherit a position in life, a place in life, not to curse people, but to bless people. And oh, my friends, we mess this up in so many ways. I've seen this among people of my own stature as pastors, that some of them get into that position and they cannot let it go. We are in an age where there's a lot of accountability for some of us, and specifically pastors as of late, to be very accountable in almost every aspect of their lives. In fact, I've seen people drop out of ministry because they cannot, how should I say, maintain the fishbowl that we are in, because they want to have their personal lives, and there is part of our life that we have to be accountable and say we have a family life, we have a personal life, especially if we're married. And those are not necessarily ones that we are in the fishbowl, but we still better be accountable, because if we're doing something wrong that's not consistent with our gospel when we're not in the fishbowl, we can be held accountable. And so sometimes we get in the position of cursing the position that we've had, the elevation that we had. But we are called to inherit a blessing, whether we're in a pastor position or not, whether in a presidential position or not, whether we're in a leader position or not. Or if we go back to Peter's examples, whether we are a man or a woman or not. Living in a traditional culture where a submission of a woman to a man is common, or whether we're living in a egalitarian system that is also prominent in our day. When I've done marriage counseling, I've always advised people, well, are you going to have a traditional marriage, or are you going to have an egalitarian marriage? And I believe that both can be biblical and are important to be biblical, as long as there is love and we're not repaying evil for evil. As Peter says, do not repay evil for evil, abuse for abuse, but on the contrary, repay each other with a blessing, for we have been called to inherit a blessing to love in the spite of difficulty, love in despite of situations that would call us to our lesser selves, our sinful selves. We are called to be in the image of God. As once again, you go back to the first chapter of Genesis, Genesis 1:26 through 27, 28. It is about male and female, slave nor free, Jew and Gentile being created in the image of God for a blessing, not for a curse, but for a blessing. So, my friends, ask yourself, even in your difficulty, do you believe that your station in life can be a blessing, even if it is not fair all the time, even if it's not just, even if you haven't been elevated to the position you think you ought to be? My friends, we should start out with blessing and then move on to justice. Now, it isn't that justice isn't important. We should strive, I believe, for that equal, beloved community that Dr. King talked about in a generation ago and still affects us in our generation, for human rights for people. But it starts not with the fight, it starts with the blessing of being already, before society recognizes, before government recognizes, to be in the image of God, to be that blessing. and to, at first, not repay evil for evil, but to turn the other cheek. Now, Jesus was able to overcome by doing the will of God. And I think that there have been others through nonviolent protests have been able to overcome the evil over time, and some have seen some radical changes that are important. But at the basis of it, as Peter says in this section, finally, out of the unity of spirit, and if we go to verse 9, do not repay evil for evil or abuse for abuse. Find your way to love in the midst of the situation. God bless you today. We trust that these continue to be words of encouragement. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next time.